And we're live. Welcome back to Jewels of the Trade. We're going to be talking pearls tonight with Matt Harris, pearl jewelry designer and owner of Matt Harris Designs. So bring all your pearl questions to the chat. You've probably seen carvings on this channel before of dragons holding pearls in jade, but that type of art exists outside of just jade carving. Matt is going to teach us all about the meaning behind the dragon and the pearl. Matt, before we get started, what piqued your interest in this topic? How do you know about the dragon and the pearl?
Well, this is not what you're going to expect, but maybe about 5, 6, 7 years ago, I became, well, maybe even 10 years ago, it's been a while. I started collecting silver and silver coins. And I thought that they call it, you guys, I don't know if anybody's a stacker. I'm a stacker. That means you just keep coins and you see piling up in silver bars. Anyways, I like the really pretty ones. And what I started noticing is there's a lot of coins that had dragons on them. And then I also noticed that the dragon had some sort of orb or a sun or whatever it was. And it was really the coins that got me interested in that. So I think one day I probably just Googled it and tried to find out what it was, or maybe read a description. But then I discovered that what most people think is the sun is a pearl. And then I discovered that most people by far don't even notice that when you look at Asian art, Chinese art, and you see a dragon, if you look a little closer, all the time you're going to see a pearl as well. And people look right by it. As a matter of fact, that thing that you see right there, the 9 dragons, that's a wall that's duplicated throughout the world. And now you guys see the pearl because we're talking about it. But a lot of people will walk by that and just say, ah, dragon, that's cool. And as a matter of fact, if you go to Sri Lanka and see their version of it, they all look the same. There's one in Chicago, as a matter of fact, if any of you are out there. But if you go to Sri Lanka and read the sign that's posted next to it, it doesn't even mention a pearl, which I thought was interesting. So I love uncovering things that a lot of people don't know about, but they see every day. And I think that's kind of what got me into it.
Oh, I'm so excited to dive into this topic before we really get like a good overview of how the Chinese view not just the pearl, but specifically in connection with the dragon. As a historian, Matt, can you give us a little bit of an overview on just how different civilizations all over the world have viewed pearls?
Yeah, it's, the interesting thing about pearls, as with a lot of things, is that way back when, the formulation of a pearl would have been just as much of a mystery as anything else, right? Because we didn't have all the science and the knowledge to back things up. And that's where all these great like folklore and tales and stories come from. So these things were as gorgeous as they are today, but nobody knew how they made them. And so that's why you get a lot of myths coming out. And some of those, to give you an idea from around the world, some people thought that oysters would open up and a raindrop would come in under a full moon and create a pearl. Or think of Venus, Venus and that famous painting where she's standing in the clamshell. So they say that Venus was born of the sea and she was the goddess of love. And if you look at paintings throughout history of Venus, she's often depicted with a pearl, and people would think that it would be her teardrops as opposed to rain fall that would come and create a pearl. And that made sense too, because a lot of pearls aren't round, they may be teardrop shaped. Let me think some other cultures. Tahiti, of course, we all love black pearls. There was a legend of the god Oro, and they said that he fell in love with the princess of Bora Bora, and he created a Tahitian pearl. And one day, as a sign of his affection for her, he slid down a rainbow, handed her the pearl, and then pearls were thus available in Tahiti. And if you look at a Tahitian pearl, a really nice one, and you move it around a little bit, you'll see kind of that rainbow overtones to it. So that's kind of romantic. It makes sense as well. So I always like the history stories of why things are, because they're so romantic, right? So there's
So
an idea
romantic.
of some places in the world and what they thought of pearls.
Oh my gosh. One day we'll have to deep dive on all the history. I'm such a history geek.
Me,
And I've always thought you mentioned Venus and sort of the views of the Greeks. I've always felt like the way that the Romans and the Greeks to some extent viewed pearls was sort of similar to even how the Chinese view jade. Not exactly, because they're still very unique in a lot of ways, but
right?
like as far as just like a reverence for a material in spite of this mystery, not knowing where it comes from, not really knowing how it got there, but we know that the Romans believed such strong, like incredible things about pearls because of the way that
Yes.
they preserved them. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
I don't
Go
know if
ahead.
you and I have talked about that before, or because it's interesting you bring it up. And indeed, a lot of people don't know what a big deal pearls were like in Rome. And as a matter of fact, Julius Caesar, they say, had a party trick where he'd take a pearl in his hand and he'd be able to hold it up like this and guess how many, grams it was. And I can't even do that. It's really hard when you're talking between 2 and 5 grams or whatever.
Well, knowing Julius Caesar, he probably started that rumor.
He probably did. Well, he ended up buying a very famous, expensive pearl for his mistress. As a matter of fact, that was said to be the most expensive pearl ever purchased. Happened shortly after his general Pompey conquered what they called continents back at the time. It basically conquered 7 territories and came back to Rome. And for his birthday, he set up his own procession. And he had the likeness of himself made in pearls and paraded that around town. And that just shows you what a big deal, what a sign of luxury and wealth and importance pearls were. All this happening under Caesar's time.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love some of the incredible parallels between Rome and China. And we're talking about China today, so we'll dive into that.
Right, I
But
guess we
thank you
are.
for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's so exciting. I just love hearing that. So tell me about China's views regarding the dragon and the pearl.
Oh my gosh, I think I've seen this piece before. It looks familiar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe on Jewels of the Trade?
Yes, I think I've seen that before.
How funny.
I almost forgot the question now. What was it?
Oh, the dragon and the pearl. What does it mean?
Yeah, so now that we know, and you're going to flip some pictures up there, I think, about pearls being with dragons. As we looked at that picture of the wall with the 9 dragons, for example, that tapestry and whatnot. So when you start looking for it, you're going to see pearls everywhere. See there, he's clutching that little pearl up in his claw. And we usually walk past this. Most people thought that was a sun. It's a flaming pearl, and that was the first flag of the Qing Dynasty. So the way it came about, now that we've established that you're going to see pearls with dragons when you look at Asian artwork and Asian history, buildings, clothing, all that sort of stuff, there's a bunch of folklore, and there's one story that I really love, and I'm going to probably get murdered in a short version because it's kind of a long story. But let me tell you about this story. And it was in ancient China, and there was a village, and this small village, poor village, a boy lived with his mother, and he would every day go out and cut the grass and then sell it for fodder and use the money to buy rice so he and his mom could eat. And that was just what he did. That's the way that they lived. And then there became a drought, and the grass just started drying up, and it wasn't there. And he was wondering, well, how are we going to eat? Well, he decided to start walking up and towards the mountains to see if he can find new sources of grass. And he did, and he'd go up a little further and further each day, and finally find grass, but then walk all the way back down. And one day he was up in the mountains, and he came across a little white bunny rabbit, and that picture, I made that with AI, by the way, you guys. Isn't that cool? All these pictures you're going to see are just made with AI. So he sees the bunny rabbit, and the bunny leads him through a cave. And on the other side of the cave is this wide open field of beautiful green grass. So he's so thankful, and he cuts the grass, takes it home, sells it, buys some rice. And then the next day he goes back up there again. But guess what? That spot where he cut the grass, it rejuvenated as if it was brand new again. So he cut it again, went to town, cut it again, went to town. And every day he would appear back at the spot of grass, it was completely rejuvenated. It was like magic. Well, he decided, hey, instead of going all the way up the mountain to cut the grass, I'm just going to cut the turf and bring some turf home and plant it, because this is obviously magic grass. I'm going to put this back in my field. So he was peeling up the turf, and under the turf, he found a little pearl, a beautiful pearl. And he picked it up, put it in his pocket, took it home. And he showed his mom, and he said, Mom, look what I found. This beautiful pearl. Maybe we can sell it and buy a lot of food. And his mom said, no, honey, that's much too beautiful to sell. What we're going to do is we're going to stick it in this empty rice sack that they keep over here. and we're going to hide it and just keep it as our treasure. And he said, okay. So he goes out and he plants the turf. And the next morning, he's out to cut the grass, the magic grass, which is going to magically appear. But bad news, there's no grass, right? So he comes back to his mom and says, Mom, I'm so sorry. There's no grass. It did magically appear. She says, son, no, don't worry about it. Come here. She takes him over to the bag. The bag's full of rice. So it turns out that this magic pearl would create an entire new bag of rice as it did the grass every single night. And so it fed him and his mom, kept him happy, fed the village, kept them happy. And there's more to the story, though. So the emperor hears about this and says, I need to have this magic pearl. And so he sends a bunch of thugs. And one of those pictures there, you'll see the little boy running from the emperor's thugs right there, also AI generated. And the thugs grab him. They take the pearl. They try to take the pearl. Then they want it for the emperor. And the boy, to protect the pearl, takes it, swallows it. And as he swallows it, he starts getting really, really hot, like flaming hot. And he works his way away from the guards and runs towards the river. That's what's happening in that scene. He gets down to the river. Everybody's running after him. And he literally drinks up the entire river. He's so hot and so thirsty. And at the same time, it starts to rain, thunder, lightning, heavy rain. And his mom runs up to him and she sees him transform into a dragon. Then that dragon flies up into the sky, provides rain for them, protection for their fields, or for them, prosperity, water for their fields. And ever since, it's been a symbol of the dragon's been a symbol of rain, water, wisdom, prosperity, protection. And that's one story that might give you an idea as to why the dragons are so revered in a great way in Chinese culture.
Amazing. I love it. And something I don't think a lot of people realize, the way that in America we might view dragons is typically more of like a European dragon that we imagine in our mind. But a lot of the dragon imagery in China is actually different. Like it's almost a different creature in a lot of ways. And I've heard a lot of lore that suggests that the dragon in China is actually a sea creature that swims.
You know, I've seen them depicted in the ocean and in the sky, so I'm not really sure about that. That'd be interesting to see what we can come up with the dragons swimming. But there's a crossover there too in Vietnamese culture, which is very similar. The dragon, the story there is that there was a dragon who was king of the seas, and that dragon fell in love with a fairy who was goddess of the mountains. And they got together, fell in love, and the fairy, supposedly in 7 days, gave birth to 100 sons. But then they got in a little bit of a tiff, and pretty soon after that, the dragon left and went back to the sea. And she was left to raise the 100 sons herself, right? And then it wasn't until they're adults when they met again. And she says, oh my gosh, here you are leaving me to raise 100 kids as a widow. That's terrible. And he said, here's the thing, you're the mountains, I'm the sea, you're the water, I'm water, you're, it's like a yin yang, basically, land and water. So where I'm getting with that is that this is very much related to the ocean, that this dragon Vietnamese culture. And as a matter of fact, when they met again, they split up the sons. 50 of them went with him to protect the sea, and the other 50 stayed to protect the land. And that became the, which dynasty? Well, one of the dynasties in Vietnam. So there's another story.
Amazing.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Yes, dragons in Western art, or in like the movies, the Chinese dragons are water, rain, protection, wisdom. In Western art, they're not the fire-breathing, princess-eating dragons, that we have. They're completely different. And as a matter of fact, I read a story once, and I think it was maybe an Olympics that China had, or some major event like that, where they were going to use the dragon as their symbol because it's such a revered creature there. But they ended up not eventually because of the mistaken identity it has in Western culture. And people may think it's more of a harsh, fierce, kind of like, why are they putting the dragon up? He eats princesses.
Oh, that's
so yeah,
so
very, very
sad.
different dragons.
Very different. Yeah, it's sad that, yeah, I guess in the European lore there's a negative connotation, but in the Eastern lore, I mean, it's a very positive connotation. It's a very good thing, and I think that's why dragon carvings in jade are so popular because
Yeah.
they symbolize protection. It's definitely a positive thing. So, how silly. How far back do you think the pearl like maintained significance in Chinese history?
If I remember right, the oldest, I'm sure of it, the oldest writings that have been found about pearls, at least in the form of wearing pearls, was found in China. And it was about a Chinese emperor giving some pearl jewelry as a gift to somebody. I don't remember who that was, or even if we know. And that was, gosh, I think it must have been 3,500 BC, if I recall. I'd have to look it up. It's in the speech
Wow.
that I give. It's on a slide someplace, but and I think that was 3,500 BC. So pearls go back, far more than diamonds, sapphires, whatnot. Those rubies go back to 4,000 BC in terms of jewelry, and then not that long ago, there was a pearl discovered that dated to 5,000 BC, but that was in the Persian Gulf.
Oh, very interesting. Why do you think civilizations connected so strongly with the pearl? What was so special about the pearl to ancient peoples?
I'm gonna guess, they're really pretty.
Yes.
Seriously, I mean, why did ancient civilizations like gold? I mean, it's beautiful, right?
Beautiful. Well, and I often reflect on Steinbeck's short, I guess it's a novella, The Pearl, where it clearly this item was of such great value that it drove a whole city mad. And it was something that, they would dive and dive and dive searching for, but most of the time would never really find. And so I imagine that there was something so rare, like unimaginably rare, because we probably don't think of pearls as being as rare as they really are, because with the introduction of culturing and pearl farms and being able to assist mollusks in producing a higher volume of pearls, I think that we as a society have forgotten how unusual it was to come across one in just normal day-to-day life back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, maybe 1 in 10,000 or 20,000 mollusks would need to be opened to find a pearl.
Wow.
And those are called natural pearls. And there still are natural pearls today. It's just that there's only one place that produces natural pearls as a business, and that's in Bahrain. And they're actually really pushing it right now and very excited about it. And they do it in a wonderfully sustainable fashion. And you're going to be hearing a lot more about that. But if you guys are a pearl geek, I mean, I'd encourage you to learn more about natural pearls. Because you can get natural pearls. They're much, 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 much more rare, as you know, and they're small. But I'm hoping that we see a lot of pearl designers from the design trade start to use them in more jewelry. I'd love to see that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm very excited to see some of the coming changes in the pearl industry. The pearl industry really impresses me because it's one of those industries where I feel like they're doing a lot of positive things in areas where the pearl industry is prominent, and especially in ecosystems that can benefit from like the farming. There's some really exciting stuff happening, and I think it's only going to get better from here. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about pearls. I mean, no offense to the diamond people, I love diamonds too, etc. But it's the only gem that comes from a living creature, and that's fascinating to me. And interestingly enough, here's a parallel we just drew. The dragon is the only mythical creature in the Chinese zodiac. Interesting. So it's year of the dragon, as you guys probably know, as of what, January or
February, yes.
February last. Yeah.
I didn't
So
realize.
isn't that interesting? Yeah.
How interesting. How interesting. So, Matt, we see the dragon and the pearl together a lot because of Jade.
Hmm.
What other sort of art do you see the dragon and pearl together in?
You know, I now that I go to museums, I made that in AI too. Isn't that beautiful? I
I
love it.
love this photo.
I'm having so much fun with that. Um, I like to go to museums now and look at every painting and see if there's a pearl in it, and you'd be fascinated. Wherever the art comes from, all parts of the world, you see pearls in paintings. The things that you uh, wouldn't necessarily notice. And as far as I think pearls and jade. I mean, sorry, dragons and jade. Thus, pearls and jade is perfect, and I see a lot of that too because it makes sense because jade is so revered, isn't it, in China? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
you go to a VIP event, where you've got the emperor and empresses or whatever, something in China that's the thing to go to. You're going to have people in jade and in pearls. I mean, they go together in a lot of ways. So I notice it in jade all the time too. I notice it in like these beautiful coins, like I was saying, people are creating coins. There's something about the imagery that I think is just, I don't know, it's neat. And now that you understand that this Chinese dragon, symbolizes that wisdom and prosperity, and life and water. It just makes it a better story when I see any of that sort of art. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of traditional art. You have that robe. Can you pull up that picture of that robe?
Yes.
So notice the claws. There's 5 claws on that robe, and that was the robe run by. Oh, you've got it right there. Cool. An imperial court robe from the Qing Dynasty. Here's an interesting note: when you do see dragons in art and jewelry, is that the 5 claws were reserved for the emperor. So that dragon would be something that is close to the emperor, the royal court. The regular dragon in other art and other clothing and sculptures and architecture around town would have 4 claws. So that's kind of cool to know.
The symbolism is so interesting, and I love learning about Chinese history and especially the emperors. And it seems like anything the emperors were allowed to do, no one else was allowed to do. No one else was allowed to wear imperial yellow. No one else was allowed to wear the 5-clawed dragon. And it really shows, it demonstrates the reverence that they had for the imperial royalty during the dynasties. And so it is so exciting to see like the robe and different demonstrations of especially like Qing. I feel like imagery of dragons and pearls. We talk about the Qing dynasty a lot because nephrite jade of the 2 jades was always really a big deal in China. Like going way back, as far back as we have found Chinese history, we have found nephrite jade. But jadeite jade is more of the newcomer to Chinese culture. And so we actually didn't see a lot of jadeite jade like being traded in and around China until the Qing dynasty. And it was really because the emperor Qianlong had fallen absolutely head over heels in love with jadeite jade. And he was the one who opened up trade with Burma in the 1700s to start importing the jadeite jade. And so I always wonder if there's an even stronger connection, between jadeite jade and pearls, because I didn't include a picture of it, but when you see photos of royalty after Qianlong, like for instance, in the case of different consorts and the Dowager Empress Cixi, you'll often see natural pearls and jadeite jade in the form of typically bangles worn together. And even in the cases of some of like Cixi's imperial robes, there are pearls and jade actually sewn into the robes themselves, but
Yeah.
always together. Can you talk a little bit more about that interwoven history where pearls and jade sort of ran parallel in China over time?
First of all, that made me think. I would love to have a jade bangle with somehow a pearl in it.
Yes.
We
Let's
should
do
figure
it.
we should figure that out.
Yes.
You guys, I bought my first jade rings from Jordan a few months ago, and I end up with like 6 of them or something like
It
that.
was awesome. It was
I
so
couldn't
funny.
stop.
He's like, "I guess I'll get 1. I guess I'll get 5."
Why
It was
not? I love
amazing.
those things.
They look so good too. Are you still wearing them?
Oh, yeah, yeah, except for video interviews, I wear a pearl ring, so,
Ah, of
yeah, I'm
course.
sorry, but I gotta
Of
leave
course.
you.
I understand. Those pearl rings are cool. Let me see those.
This is just silver and a freshwater pearl, so it's just a nice look,
Ooh. Looks like a
without a lot of money.
Tahitian from here.
It does. No, it's a dyed freshwater, and then this is a Mabe pearl Tahitian on,
Ooh,
22 karat, so that's
amazing.
pretty
What's your
fun.
necklace, Matt?
Ooh, this is an 18.5 karat Tahitian in 18 karat white gold. This is my ugh, It's my love in jewelry. It's my favorite piece of jewelry. Yeah, you see me
It's
on it all the time.
beautiful. I love it. I
Hey,
love
one
it.
more parallel too that just, if you don't mind me going back to what you just said
Yes,
about
no,
the
please.
emperors, being the
Yes.
ones that, have these things. Uh, go back to Rome. I know we're on China, but just this is interesting. Julius Caesar actually decreed for a while that women couldn't wear pearls unless they were married and unless that they had a certain level height in like the society. So it was kind of, you had to be a certain someone to wear pearls. So you know what that did after he declared that?
Made them very desirable, I'm sure.
Everybody wanted to get married so they could wear their pearls.
How funny. One of my favorite like anecdotes about Caesar and pearls was when he went up to what was called Britain,
Yeah.
like the island of
Mhm.
what is Great Britain now. And he was in search of pearls, but he deemed them unworthy of trade and was kind of like, oh, these pearls aren't good enough. And he left without them. And when you read his Gaelic Wars, you kind of realize that Caesar only says things that portray Caesar in a positive light. And so I've always wondered why, like, what's the real story he didn't bring home the pearls?
Now, I mean, this is just storytelling, right? So I'm not backing it up, yeah, because I really don't know if it's true. But I've heard stories that what was really happening is that he very much desired the freshwater river pearls up there in Great Britain. And as a matter of fact, when he tried to invade, some people would say that his reason for trying to conquer Britain is to get the pearls. So I
I
don't know.
believe Edward Gibbon mentioned that in his like extremely famous the what is it, the fall and decline of the Roman Empire. Those
Really? Huh.
books.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know where that came from, but I remember coming across that a few times, but not enough to where I researched it to see where it went, but who knows?
It's always hard. You have to take all of your sources with a grain of salt when it comes to Roman history. Pliny and Suetonius were gossips. You cannot trust anything they say.
Pliny told plenty of stories that were absolutely not true.
Yes, definitely. Oh, do you know the one about Cleopatra in the Pearl?
That's one of them.
Oh yeah. You tell it. You probably tell it better than I do. I'll
You
let
guys
you
wanna
tell
hear
the
this
story.
one?
Oh,
This is
this
one of
is
my
such a
favorite.
great story.
We're gonna do a video about this because 'cause we've done, like, a ton of research on it. Uh,
Amazing.
quick story, we talked about Rome and how famous pearls were, right? So, one of the generals, for Julius Caesar, was dating kind of Cleopatra. I don't know if they're dating or just best buddies or whatnot, but they were having banquets all summer long, and he was throwing these great, banquets, and then she went to him and said, I'll bet you I can throw the most expensive banquet in history," and he's like, "You're on." Right? So, they get together some time later and they've got the best food you can imagine and dancing monkeys and whatever, all the stuff. And he goes at the end of the meal and he says, "Yeah, Cleo, this was like a really great party, but you know what? It's not the best or the most expensive in history." And she said, "Hold on." And she gets a pearl earring, takes it off. I'm looking for a pearl earring. Here's a pearl necklace. Takes it off of her ear, and supposedly that was a pair of the most expensive pearls ever in history. And at the time they cost like 11 million sesterces, which people would argue, but maybe that 20 million bucks right now. Anyway, so she hands it, as the story goes, to somebody to put it in a glass of wine. Some people say vinegar. It dissolves and she drinks it. And then she goes, okay, that now has been the most expensive banquet in history. That's the story.
Amazing.
It can't happen though. We tried it. I crushed up pearls. I took different types of pearls, culture pearls, natural pearls, put them in vinegars, put them in wine. It was a sin to waste the wine. Yeah,
Funny.
it doesn't happen.
Did
So, but great story
did
though.
she just
And
swallow it
Pliny
like
wrote
a
that.
pill, like Mikimoto style?
If it all happened at all, I don't know. It was a big pearl. It would be a tough one to swallow.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the Cleopatra story.
Oh, I love that story. Pearls, they have such a really interesting history, and I love seeing pearls and jade worn together because jade obviously has an incredible 8,000-year history and it's full of drama. Like Jade's story is all it's war and love and romance and heartbreak and betrayal, and I mean it reads better than like the most interesting romance novel or soap opera or telenovela or anything that you would be entertained by. You'll find the story of Jade more entertaining. And I think pearls
Huh.
are the same way. Like there's so much drama in pearls.
That's why I'm in it too. I'm a romantic guy, and like I didn't know. I need to learn more about Jade. Being a friend with you, I'm getting to know more all the time. But yeah, that's the way I think about pearls as well. And I mean, the history of things that have happened as a result of somebody wanting a pearl have been incredible.
Ooh, give us an example.
Oh gosh, Queen Elizabeth, sister, Queen Mary of Scots. Queen Elizabeth had her jailed. They had kind of a tiff over who should have had the throne. And Queen Mary of Scots loved pearls, but Queen Elizabeth really loved pearls. Queen Mary of Scots actually had got some pearls from Pope Clement, the seventh, I believe, or no, the first in Italy. Um, gave I'm trying to remember exactly who. See, when you come up with the names, it's skipping. But anyways, these pearls were handed down eventually to Queen Mary of Scots. And Queen Mary of Scots, then, when she died in prison, these pearls went to Queen Elizabeth I. And those pearls, at least two of them that we know of, the rumor is that all four, but the two of them probably are in the imperial crown that Prince Charles wore on his what's the word, coronation. So there's a story, about the fight over those pearls that originally they say were given to the Pope by some sailor that found them, and they go back to 14 something rather.
Huh. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
See, drama.
Yeah,
I
right.
love gemstone drama. All right, Matt, we have a question from Shauna. She wants to
Shauna.
know, what is the biggest and or best pearl that you have ever seen, and why was it so special?
Well, I gotta say the biggest pearl that is a nacreous pearl. So there's pearls that come from like clams that can be like really giant that aren't nacreous. There's pearls aren't just the shiny lustrous pearls we see. They come from all sorts of different creatures. And I'll tell you about one in a minute because it's my favorite pearl. So the biggest like pearl that you would be used to, like a Tahitian or South Seas or whatnot, probably the biggest one I've touched, I think it was maybe like a 26 karat South Seas or something like that. South Seas are the white and yellow pearls, and sometimes kind of like a silverish, that are grown in the largest mollusk that produces an nacreous pearl. And so they're going to be big, whereas like Akoyas are tiny little guys. But the best pearl it's not the one I've ever seen, but the best pearl I own, and I've seen some, but they're really rare, and I've only maybe seen 5 or 6 together at once ever, is called a Melo pearl. And a Melo pearl is a non-nacreous pearl. And interestingly enough, when we talked about Vietnam, it's very cherished in Vietnam. Remember we talked about the dragon that was the king of the sea. The Emperor of Vietnam in the early 20th century actually confiscated all of the Melo pearls, and you weren't allowed to own a pearl. He got them all. Another story about a different emperor in a different part of the world that was confiscating the pearls because they brought him protection and wisdom as well. So these are fiery. And so it kind of crosses over with the pearl used as a fiery ball as well. If you look at them, the term for it is actually fire. You look at them, they have fire. You see flames in these pearls. Have you seen one, Jordan?
No, never in real life, but oh my gosh, I would die. I
Yeah.
would love to see one.
I've got one. And when I bought that, I wasn't planning on it. It was so much more expensive than, I'll give you an idea. It's, I think maybe 15 carats, and I think I paid like $18,000 for it, if I recall, for one pearl. And I didn't
I
have the
want to see
money.
it. Oh my
And
gosh.
I
We could
saw
do
it
a
on,
whole video on just this pearl.
yeah, it took me like 4 days to like call people and say, I need money for this pearl. And I bought it from this really famous guy. It was really cool. And there's an artist named Hemmerle, who's a famous German jewelry designer that's in the story. I'll have to tell that another time because it's a long story. But that's Melo.
Well, the chat is calling to see the pearl. Shauna says, show it to us, Matt.
I've got it like literally in a drawer right here. Do you want to see it?
Yes. Oh my goodness.
All right.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. This is huge.
There's no way it's going to show the fire or even the definition on this video with this camera. I'll wait for it to adjust the lighting, and I'll hold it up for you.
Just to
But
know it exists is an
this
honor.
is the Melo pearl.
Oh my
I
gosh.
don't
Now,
think
how
it's
many
too close.
millimeters is it?
I don't remember. I don't have a caliper with me. You can kind of
So
see the flames in it a
beautiful.
little bit. See the flames? Cool, huh?
It looks like magic.
Yeah, that's
It
a
looks
Melo.
amazing. Oh my goodness. So I've seen conch pearls in real life, but I've
Mhm.
never seen a Melo. What are some of the other lesser known natural pearls that can be very, very, very expensive, like Melos and conches?
You know, I'm not really an expert at that. When I've seen them and I bought a few from people that do know what they're doing, I realized that quite often they kept the scientific name of the mollusk, or they have names that I can't remember. You know what I mean? Not like a Tahitian, which is really easy. I don't know what would be more expensive than Mellows. I'm not really sure if there is or what it would be. Huh? It'd be interesting
Oh,
to find out.
what an honor. Thank you for showing us, Matt. Oh my
Yeah, thanks for
gosh.
asking.
That is such a cool. What else do you have? What other show and tell pieces are you hiding?
A lot.
Oh my gosh. Matt, anytime you want to show exceptional pearls, you call me. Come on my channel. We'll talk about it.
All right. I should do something about mellows at some point in time, because they really are pretty. If you ever have the means to get one, they're pretty cool.
And it's something that so many people are curious about, but never get the opportunity to really learn about or see. And so that really would be a wonderful, wonderful topic. What is this? The pearl
This is
and the
the
dragon.
this is the way that you learn about it. Weirdly enough, I just had this sitting in front of me because I was looking up that story about Vietnam. I know I read it in this book. And this will teach you all about mellows. Not only that, but it talks a lot if somebody wants to geek out about dragons and pearls, and particularly in Vietnam. It's a really interesting story about a guy that goes and views this collection of mellows, this is unworldly. The ability to put this together. And if I remember it, I think this somehow came maybe from that emperor. But anyways, that's a story about Melo.
Amazing. So Matt Dake wants to know, is it true that seashells can only do one pearl at a time?
Yeah, great question. No, a lot of them do only do one pearl at a time. Say Akoyas, for example, will only do one pearl at a time. It is possible to get multiple pearls in the oyster that makes the pearls in Tahiti, French Polynesia. So it just depends on the variety. Now, compare that. I'm going to add one more level to your question. The freshwater pearls that are made mostly in lakes and streams in China, those you can get 20 up to 30 pearls in them if you want in one. But not only that, you can put it back in the water and it's going to produce again, whereas a lot of these other oysters, you can't. Like a koya, the oyster's dead once you harvest one pearl. And in Tahitians, depending if it's in good shape, you can actually re-implant. That's how they got this big boy right here, is that this went back into the water multiple times. So when they take out a pearl, they take a bead of the exact same size, as long as that oyster's healthy, insert it in a quick amount of time, put it back, and then it creates nacre around that bead.
How
So it depends.
often are Tahitian pearls harvested?
Well, there's not like really it's not like every June 5th, they harvest whenever they're ready. I know, farms harvest at different times, but whether it's similar to the answer about one pearl or two pearls, etc. The different varieties of mollusks and where they are can make a big difference as far as what is the best time to harvest it. And you want to do it when the nacre's really nice. Like in Japan, they'll do it in like a cooler temperatures, cooler water, the Akoya. So it just depends. Yeah.
Well, speaking of nacre, Dake had a question. He says, those freshwater pearls don't really have much of the pearl layer, right? Is it mostly the implant cores?
Jake, good questions. Without getting super deep into it, generally, the freshwater pearls, there's a few different kinds now. There's nucleated and non-nucleated. So recently they've been doing nucleated. So just like, say, a koya, they'll put a bead in it. Before that, they were putting a piece of tissue in it, and it's called mantle tissue, and so it's like a little tiny little carving from another mollusk, and that would bring the mother of pearl and create the nacre up against or become the irritant. So the more nacre is, the more there's nacre on whatever the irritant is, the shinier it's going to be. I think that's kind of what you're asking when you say pearl layer. So the longer they've been in the water, will help as well. But in other conditions can help as well. But in general, freshwater pearls haven't been as lustrous. And maybe the king of luster is going to be the Akoya pearls. That said, recently there's a pearl called an Edison pearl, which we're going to do an entire video about because it deserves it, where it is a freshwater pearl and it is bead nucleated, and the luster is fantastic. I just submitted some to a magazine this morning. As a matter of fact, I'm hoping it's going to do a little bit of a write-up on it. And you'll look at these things and they're majestic. So those are something recently coming out of the freshwater world.
There's so many exciting things happening in the pearl world right now. And I think this next year or two, we're going to see probably a lot of change in the market and just the different options that are available. Dake wants to know, how long does a pearl last? It seems more delicate than inorganic gemstones. How can you prolong its longevity?
Well, yes, it's a fragile gem. Keep that in mind too. It really is. On the scheme of gemstones, I don't think pearls in general are just going to last as long. Although you've got these pearls that are hundreds of years old, like the ones in the King Crown, but I imagine those are very, very well taken care of. Yeah, right. So, taking care of them is going to be what makes them last. And the biggest tip is that since pearls are comprised of part water, they love moisture, they love humidity, and we tell people to wear them is the best way you can take care of your pearls, because the oils in your skin will kind of keep them healthy. But wear them without perfumes. The biggest thing that I see in old pearls that come into me, people come and try to sell me the pearls all the time, and I'd say 7 out of 10 times they're yellow. And the reason they're yellow is because people wore them with like lotions and perfumes and just stuff, and eventually dulls them and gets them yellow. So the best thing you can do is, there's a saying in the pearl world, the pearl should be the last thing that you put on and the first thing that you take off. And if you do that, they can last for generations and generations and generations.
Matt, I love what you said about how the oils in your skin are good for the pearl, because that is also true for jade.
Oh
Jade
yeah,
is
how
meant to
about
be
that?
worn and left. Right. It's
See
making
that?
sense why there's this like strongly intertwined history between pearl and jade, and the fact that they both should be worn and be touched. Matt, what are some
Yes.
other similarities between pearl and jade?
And like a diamond could care less about your moisture.
Diamonds, you don't want to touch diamonds with your oil, because diamonds love grease, but not in a good way. They like hold on to it and it
Yeah,
makes
right.
it
And
all
make them dull.
murky. Yeah, you got to take a toothbrush. You got to we talk some mad smack about
Remind me,
diamonds.
remind me if we don't do it now, later, to tell Dake about the Pearls as One course, because those are some great questions, and that would be perfect.
Yes.
So I don't know if this is right, but since you know Jade, I came up with a little bit ago a list of things that I think pull together jade and pearls, how they are similar, because I felt we needed to make this marriage happen somehow. You want to
Yes.
hear it?
Yes,
All
I'm
right,
ready. Oh,
I
I'm so
wrote it
excited.
down. Where did I write it? Right here. Okay, so similarities between jade and pearls. One is kind of the ancientness, right? So they've been around for thousands of years,
Yes.
and they haven't been valued and cherished just for their prettiness, but they have mystical properties throughout all these ages that we've been talking about, right?
Yes.
Uh, I wrote that they're like the Brad Pitt and the George Clooney of the gem world, and that they're timeless and universally adored.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. The
Right?
Brad Pitt and the George Clooney.
I mean, those are handsome guys, and those at any age, and they're going to go down in history like that.
No,
Okay.
you're so right. And Jade and Pearl are both so highly revered. And when you look at Jade in history, you see that the 7 Mesoamerican civilizations that celebrated Jade really had a lot in common with the Chinese civilizations that revered jade, having never met each other, they believed a lot of the same things about the stone. They believed that it was the key to immortality. They believed that, that it had this mystical origin. And it's you see that in pearls too, where people from all over the world, even if they haven't met each other, even if they live hundreds or thousands of years apart, somehow, for some reason, they still believe that this is a really mystical, special, and incredible thing. And
Yeah.
gemstones are crazy. I just love it. What are the
Okay.
other things on your list, Matt?
Symbolic superstars. They are heavy in symbolism, like we talked about too. So both of them be very symbolic for the reasons that we just talked about.
What does pearl usually symbolize? I know we talked about it with the dragon already, but like what are some other things that the pearl will symbolize?
Well, it depends on the time period, right? So in biblical times, it depicted purity, virginity, even the Virgin Mary shown in pearls a lot. And think of the pearly gates of heaven, for example. So you see a lot of pearls in religious art. That would be and at the same time that they still conveyed importance and expense as well, but then add on this purity aspect. So in religious art, come up to today, I mean the 1900s, they what do most people know pearls as now, and I think it's changing and it's good, is elegance, power. You think of Audrey Hepburn and Marilyn Monroe and Barbara Bush and Coco Chanel, and so that kind of got people thinking of pearls in a 1900s sort of way, and maybe not this purity and maybe not the wisdom and all that sort of stuff. And so I think it just depends on the time and place, and it tends to change. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. What's next
All
on the
right.
list?
Okay. Symbolic. We went over that. I wrote that they are cultural icons, and we kind of talked about too how they are the imperial symbols, right? So whether it's European, or Caesar's time or whatnot, you've got pearls being so famous, worn by kings and queens. You've got emperors and empresses wearing jade, right?
How lucky are we to live in a time period where we have access to gemstones that only royalty would have worn at
Yeah.
other times in human history?
Although not the exact same gemstones. I would love to own one of those like 100-carat perfect Sri Lankan, sapphires or something.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You can go see them in the Tower of London. Okay. This is a question for you. Is this a similarity? Because they both tend to have like a cool touch. I know one test for jade is to like put on like your cheek and see if it's cool. Pearls have kind of that cool touch too. They're good at like thermal conductivity, I guess is what it is.
As someone who owns both pearls, which these are from Matt Harris Designs, everybody, by the way, you can visit mattharrisdesigns.com, and jade, I can say with certainty that they're both cold when you first put them on.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a misconception that I always take the opportunity to clarify when it comes to jade.
Yeah.
Some people believe that jade cannot be made warm. So some people believe that like if you were to put a flame to jade, it wouldn't heat up. That's actually not true. Jade will get warm. So in a jewelry case under warm lights, it will heat up. And so if you were to shop at a jewelry store and try on a strand of jade that's been under really hot lights, just because it feels warm, that doesn't mean that it's not jade. And of course, being worn on your skin will cause them to heat up as well. But yes, when you get ready in the morning and you initially put your strand of pearls or jade on, you get kind of the same feeling from both, where it's like it's cold and it feels smooth, and it's just like on a tactile level, very, very enjoyable to just hold and connect with.
Yeah. So it's tactile pearls, same thing. They feel good, right? Okay. And so then I ended it with this, that in the world of gems, these are exclusive, as we talked about. They always have been historically, yet I like them that they're accessible. So for example, the rings that I bought from Jordan, she's got things that start like $100, but she's got things that are $10,000. And
Mason K, everybody.
There's something for everybody. And I had no idea until I went shopping with her and I bought all these things that I actually got all these rings for a really reasonable price. I thought they were expensive. Same thing with pearls. Is people come to me all the time and they say, oh, aren't they expensive? Or they'll go to my website and they'll see something for like $79. and they'll say, wow, I thought pearls were more expensive. It just depends on the pearl. So there's something for everybody. And that's another thing I like about it, is that we're not just holding this for one particular segment of the population.
Definitely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because the chat is alive with support for men wearing pearls. And of course,
Yeah.
men love jade as well. So that's another really great similarity. Dake
Yeah.
says that he's noticed a growth in popularity for men's pearls. Matt, what do you have to say about that?
You know what I have to say about that
I
already.
love when you talk about this topic.
It's one of my favorite topics, because the reality, guys, is that men have always worn pearls. It's not, they don't belong to women. They don't belong to anybody. And throughout history, we talked about Julius Caesar and his general, right? We talked about, we didn't talk about the kings and queens. King Henry VII was known for wearing pearls. King Charles I got a pearl when he was a boy, wore it on his left ear his entire life, even on into battle on his horse with his sword. And then when he was executed and beheaded, he chose to wear the pearl to his own beheading. So pearls are, you tell those guys that pearls aren't masculine, right? So pearls always have been. It's just this change that came apart with the movies and whatnot in the 1900s, I think, that kind of made them a little more feminine. Now, they've always been feminine too. Talk about Queen Elizabeth, of course, and everybody else. But it's been kind of for both. There's nothing that says pearls should not be worn by men. And so what's happening now is people are catching on. My disco lights are going on off. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. People are catching on, and men are enjoying pearls. And it started, well, I don't know who it started with, but you've got Jock Peterson, the Atlanta Braves, during the World Series game 2 years ago, had a white strand of pearls and ran around the bases and won the World Series. And then everybody flocked to the jewelry store saying, what were those? I want to buy those pearls. You've got Harry Styles. And just look up Harry Styles. You'll see him wearing pearls, right? Pierce Brosnan, Mario Lopez, you name the rapper, a lot of those guys are wearing pearls. We don't have any of these pictures here, but there's lots of rappers wearing pearls. So the entertainment industry, particularly music, less than actors, are really helping bring that back, which is kind of a cool thing. But you'll see pearls everywhere on guys now. And I wear a pearl every day, and I have a bunch of men that wear pearls all the time.
Oh, I love
That's
it.
right, Shauna.
Matt, was there anything else on your list of similarities between pearls and jade?
No, that was it.
Perfect. Well, one final question as we're kind of winding down here. Let's talk about the connection between pearls and modern day China. Do pearls come from China? What is the pearl trade like in China? Is there demand in the Chinese market for pearls?
Huge demand. Yeah, as a matter, they've got pearl markets that are the size of cities out there. And just to give you guys an idea, the total production of pearls worldwide, China's at like 99.5%. So they make most of the pearls by far in the world come from China. Lots of different reasons. Part of the reason is, they've got those mollusks where you can produce 20 something pearls, put it back in over and over again. I've seen pictures of people families that used to have like rice paddies that converted them to ponds by like digging out 6 feet deep, putting water in it, and holding nets with mollusks on empty Coke bottles. So there's a ton of pearls coming out of China, and pearls they're buying a lot of the other pearls as well. There's I think I heard he was an actor or some famous person in China recently that like literally bought all of the Tahitian pearls at a particular auction. Everybody's buying pearls. Go on TikTok, you're going to see people wearing pearls. So there's a lot of consumer demand in China itself for pearls. So they're a big player by far. Yeah.
Amazing. Matt, you have given us so much information today. I'm going to have to insist that you come on one of my live shows again, because this has been an absolute blast. And to be honest, I feel like there's so much that we didn't even cover. How can people learn more about pearls?
I have enjoyed this too. This is kind of cool. I love lives. And except for my disco light, I don't know what's going on with my lighting. There's a few different ways. All right. Do you mind if I plug my YouTube channel?
Please.
Matt Harris Pearls, if you go there. As a matter of fact, Sean, I don't know. I saw your name sounds familiar. I'm curious if you've commented in there before, because your name looks familiar. But we have a lot of pearl education. It's all pearl education there. So come to my YouTube channel. You're going to see the story come about Edison pearls, about Cleopatra, about all that stuff. And then for any of you, you don't have to be in the pearl industry. The best thing that's happened to pearls in a long time is there's a course called Pearls is One, and anybody can go through it, and you've got a discount code for it, which is awesome. And it's not expensive to begin with, if I remember right. So you can learn everything about pearls there. Now, I'm a GIA Pearl graduate, but I also went through Pearls is One, and I got to tell you, I learned so much in pearls. I learned in both, but that Pearls is One is valuable. And here's my tip for it: is don't just read, look at the content. It's the questions and answers below is where a lot of the magic happens, because there's always questions about pearls. There's a ton I don't know about pearls. I'll go there sometimes and read the comments just to see if there's something new that somebody posted that I didn't know about. So great resource, and you know about it, so you'll back me up on that, right?
Love it. Oh my gosh. I'm obsessed with the course. I actually log in often to read the comments. Literally, the
Yeah.
comments are so incredible. And I do have a discount code for anybody who wants to take the Pearls is One course for free. You can use the discount code JOT and you won't have to pay a dime. But
Oh,
this
free even. That's great.
information, I know, right? This information is so valuable, and I highly recommend, whether you're a seller or a shopper or a collector or just somebody who's interested and wants to learn more, it will make you fall even more in love with pearls than you already are. So I
Yeah.
full-heartedly endorse that course. I did want to take a moment to share. We do have a Discord server for the Jot YouTube audience. Everyone, there is a link in the description. I have had some incredible people post like carvings that they have in the chat to share with the channel. And if you have pieces that you want to be featured on a live show, you can
Cool.
also join the Discord and even share them. There's a special channel for sharing your content that you want to be featured on the YouTube. So don't be afraid that if you post something that it's just going to be shared to the YouTube without your permission. It won't. But look at these incredible pieces that people have shared in our Discord. You get to see all sorts of really cool Jade items, and these in particular, these are featuring like dragon carvings with the pearl, which is what we talked about today. So had to plug that.
Cool.
Have to plug the Discord. Make sure that you're subscribed to the channel. Be sure to visit Matt's website. There's a link in the description. Subscribe to his YouTube channel and take the Pearls as One course. Matt, any final words before we sign off?
I always just love talking about this stuff. For those of you that have gone the full haul with us, thank you so much. Thanks for being interested in pearls. Share what you know, because they have a story to be told, lots of stories to be told. And that's what I'm so excited about. So keep on learning. It's a great, great topic.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central. Bye.
Bye, everybody.